So like every Jewish child in Israel, I learned from infancy that this is our land, that there are other people here that hate us, and we need to defend ourselves from them. They are Arabs. We didn't even call them Palestinians. As a young Zionist, I proudly joined the army and served as a combat officer. In my 5 years of service, I was deployed in Gaza and throughout the West Bank. During the day, I made people miserable at checkpoints and on the streets, and at night, I terrorized women and children in their homes. All this was done to keep them on their knees so that they wouldn't dare thinking about uprising. Because of my Zionist brainwashing, I was sure that I'm doing the right thing, because we are the good guys and they are the bad guys. So I took part in the oppression of the indigenous Palestinians. At a period, their only weapon were stones and strikes. So this is the first Intifada. Only later in life, I dared to doubt, and on a very long journey, I learned and discovered that what we were taught were false myths designed to quiet our conscience. And what I learned that the real history, the real story, is very similar to what happened on other places on this planet. Like in the US, like in Canada, like here in Australia. People from Europe came here and decided that this land would be theirs, at the expense of the indigenous people. It is called settler colonialism. And in all these places, it involved brutal ethnic cleansing. Now, my grandparents fled Poland and Lithuania for obvious reasons of persecution and anti-Semitism. And rightly so, sought refuge. However, the Zionists didn't come to integrate in the local communities in Palestine. They came to establish a Jewish state. And since it's impossible to establish a Jewish state in a country where the vast majority of the population is not Jewish, they spoke from the first day about expulsion, transfer in their language. And that's exactly what happened in the Nakba of 1948. They brutally expelled most of the Palestinians, Muslims and Christians, demolished hundreds of villages, so that they would have nowhere to return to. And they stole the property and the land, and they established the Jewish state. Now this process, in one way or another, has continued ever since. Because in order to keep the state Jewish, an apartheid regime must be maintained, and ethnic cleansing must continue endlessly. So the horrible genocide that's happening now in Gaza is just another cruel chapter of the same reality, of the same 80 years reality. Nothing new. So I grew up on a stolen land, and I was part of the apartheid regime, which controls and inflicts ongoing suffering on millions of people. Therefore, I devote myself to doing everything I can to dismantle this regime. Now back to Australia. The murderous attack in Sydney was a horrific event. The arbitrary murder of innocent people can never be justified in any way. The killing of civilians must be condemned and fought, whether it is the bombing of villages that killed thousands of innocent people in Lebanon, or the arbitrary killing of hundreds of people in residential buildings in Tehran, the ongoing killing of people in the West Bank by settlers, by the support of the IOF, or the murder of Jews in Boynton Beach. All of these hate crimes must be condemned and opposed. But But instead of this understanding, what we are witnessing these days is a murky wave of hatred, incitement, and the spread of lies and propaganda, exploiting tragic event for political gain. Zionist organizations did not wait a moment and are using the event for their own political purposes, which are defending and supporting the Israeli apartheid regime, the ethnic cleansing and the genocide it commits, and of course, for silencing anyone in Australia who tried to fight for justice in Palestine. Blaming the pro-Palestinian movement for the event in Sydney is false, malicious, and it is deliberate. So no one knows yet what the motives of the attackers were. But if there's any connection at all between the struggle for justice in Palestine and the Sydney event, it's exactly the opposite of what the Zionist is trying to present. The Israeli brutal apartheid regime increases the danger and the threats for Jewish lives all around the world, not the other way around. This assertion that David mentioned before is made of a combination of two factors. One, an oppressive regime that for 80 years have produced destruction, death, and suffering for millions of people will always generate resistance and rage. All over the world, people are furious and oppose the Israeli regime, and rightly so. The second factor is the Zionist false claim that Israel represents all Jews worldwide, and the deliberate artificial conflation of Judaism with Zionism. So the combination of these two may causes ignorant people to think that every Jew they see is a Zionist, whether it Melbourne or Sydney. Some of these people may deliberately harm Jews. So it's the Zionists to blame, if anyone else. Well, we know Zionists and understand their motives in this false conflation. What is harder to comprehend and must be fought against is why the Australian government, and to a large extent the mass media, buy into this distorted false narrative. If I, who grew up inside the Zionist indoctrination and was part of it, managed to wake up and learn the truth about the reality in Palestine and Zionism, there is no reason that Albanese or Penny Wong cannot learn and understand it.
Yeah.
I call on them from this stage, be courageous, grow a backbone, lead toward justice instead of pandering and surrounding the Israeli supporters group. I'm about to finish. The genocide in Gaza must be stopped. The Israeli apartheid regime must be dismantled, and Zionism, as a racist supremacist ideology, must be thrown into the dustbin of history. Just like slavery, just like white supremacy in South Africa. This is what the Australian government should work towards. De-Zionization of the space between the river and the sea, and, de-Zionization of Australia.
Yeah.
And this will bring justice and liberation to Palestinians and to all people in Palestine. And as a byproduct, will also increase the safety of Jews around the world and in Australia. Thank you.